What's up, y'all? It's Meka, and I am back with another Crime Snacks. I know that has been some time. My bad, y'all. It has been some time. I believe the last Crime Snacks that I did was for the D4VD case update, and that is why I'm back today. I mean, it has been a long time, mostly because there has not been a lot going on this case for a few months now, and that's because the district attorney in LA and the homicide unit really tried to keep this case on lock. They've been trying to protect the evidence for the case, and so they locked up the autopsy report. They locked up a lot of things for the public, because when I tell you all the rumors and misinformation that was being spread online via TikToks and Instagrams of the world, it was a lot, and it could have potentially really hurt this case. So fast forward to now, David was arrested, and some would say, and I have to agree, finally arrested. I would say a little over a week ago. Word was buzzing that he was going to get arrested on that Friday, and he got arrested on Monday, that following Monday, and he actually was charged with first-degree murder and with special circumstances, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit today. So speaking of today, I'm actually going to go through the documents of the case from the courts, and we're just going to kind of go over them together and just kind of chit chat a little bit and talk about the latest updates in this case. I have to forewarn you that it is very graphic. Some of the information is very gruesome, and we have to keep in mind that this information is regarding the minor in the case, Celeste Rivas Hernandez. And so if this is too much of a touchy subject for you, if it makes you uncomfortable, you probably don't want to watch this video, and I'm okay with that. Just come back next time for another one of my videos or some of the other content that we have on our page, because we do have a lot of other content on this page. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So again, this case is in regard to David, the singer. If you're not familiar with him, he is a alternative rap artist. His music, I would say, is kind of dark, a little bit strange. But overall, I would say he's a talented individual in regard to the music industry, and he was on the upclimb in his career before all this transpired with him and Celeste Rivas Hernandez. His real name is David Anthony Burke, and this is in regard to the 14-year-old girl that was found in the front of his Tesla. Now, Teslas are, if you're not familiar with the way a Tesla is built or made, they have what's called a frunk in the front of the car, which is like a trunk in the front of the car and one in the back. Her remains were found in the front of his vehicle and abandoned. His vehicle was towed to a tow yard, and that happened on September 8th of 2025. So apparently this vehicle had been sitting on a residential street not too far from where he resided at the time, and the tow people were finally called, and it was taken to the tow yard again on September 8th of 2025. The tow yard's name was Hollywood Tow, I believe. So yeah, that is what happened. So we're going to get into more details on what all they found in this car, and just talk about where the case is up until this point. And this is the document laying out what they're planning on charging him with. And it's very, very detailed, so bear with me. So again, on September 8th, the car was taken to a tow yard. The workers at the tow yard noted that there was a smell of decay coming from this vehicle, and also flies kind of surrounding the vehicle. So LAPD came out, and in that, they were able to determine pretty quickly whose vehicle this was, and it was David's vehicle. The problem with that is David was nowhere to be found because he was on tour at the time. And so, or at least at first they thought, and a lot of people online speculated, that if the body that was found in the car was this actually David. Of course, it turned out it wasn't him. He was again on tour. So they determined that it was his vehicle. They opened the vehicle up on site at the tow yard, and they find a dismembered body in this vehicle. Specifically, they observed a black cadaver bag covered in insects. Inside the bag, they discovered a severely decomposed head and torso. A plastic garbage bag beneath the black cadaver bag contained dismembered arms and legs. However, this victim that was in the car was missing their ring finger and their left ring finger and their pinky finger, which, as we comb through these documents, the ring finger and the pinky finger were never found. So on September 16th of 2025, they were positively able to identify who this was in this car, and it turns out it was Celeste Rivas Hernandez, who at the time was 14 years old. I believe her birthday was right around the corner, so she was about to turn 15. I want to say maybe 2 days from the day they found her body or something like that. And so she was 14 years old, and now the mystery goes, how does a 14-year-old child end up in David's vehicle? Yeah, very, very strange, right? So, of course, they're like getting to work on the investigation, and they find out that Celeste and David, the victim, is connected to David on more than one level, and it turns out they actually met in January of 2022 when she was 11 years old. So keep that in mind as we go through these documents. She was 11 years old. She was a child when he met her. I'm not sure, he might have been 17 or somewhere around there, but he was older than her, a lot older than her. And so 11-year-old and someone that of that age that's older than them, they really don't have anything in common. There's really not any reason that they should have a lot of communication, but these two did. So by November of 2023, they have been able to find out that she was 13 and he was 18. They began a sexual relationship. Okay. So yeah, at that point, it's definitely illegal. He's 18 years old. She's 13 years old. I have a 13-year-old daughter. She's in middle school. I can't even wrap my mind around her dating right now, let alone being pursued by someone that's that much older than her. So I know that some people like to normalize this type of behavior, but my personal opinion, I don't think it's appropriate, but and there are laws against it. So detectives learned that the victim had been reported missing to Riverside County Sheriffs by her family, both in February and in April of 2024. Okay, so Celeste and her family are from an area called Lake Elsinore, which is like somewhere around 70, 80 miles away from LA. So not super close. She's a 13-year-old, and somehow you're going to find out that she's making her way to LA. She does not have a driver's license. She's not old enough to have a driver's license at that point. So someone is making sure that she's able to be in LA. So when she's running away and whatnot, that's where she's going, to LA. So they find David's information in Celeste's phone records, and they contact him. Okay, and at this point, he tells them, well, the detectives tell them, at first they're like, hey, do you know Celeste, Hernandez or whatnot? And he's acting like he's not super familiar with her. Like it's it's not a real close relationship. He said that he last saw her February 13th or 14th on the 24th. And that he was also unaware that she was a minor. So the detectives at this point are telling him she is a minor, although he knows that she's a minor, but they are letting him know on record, this girl is a minor. Again, he's saying he didn't know that. So Riverside County contacts LA County, and they a welfare check. basically to try to see if Celeste is with him at his residence. Where is she at? And they go to his house, and again, they inform him once again that she is underage and a minor. And he again says he was not aware that she was a minor. He said that he only met her once in person in November of 2023. And so then at the same time, they put in this paperwork, or in this court document, that for some reason he ends up showing the detectives or LAPD a picture of Celeste in his phone, and it's like a yearbook picture of her, which was a little strange, but yeah, so that they don't really go and elaborate much on that. But next thing you know, 2 days later, Celeste returns home. So, I mean, obviously he talked with her, or his team talked with him, or somebody was like, hey, you need to send this girl home. It's not looking good for you. She needs to go home. She's a minor. The police have now let you know that she's a minor. You need to I feel like his team, or even himself, may have been like, he needed to create some type of separation between them, because this could potentially ruin his career. It's very controversial, ruin his life, really, him being involved with a minor. So despite him, so after all this, she goes home. And this is where you start to see like the predatorial part of David. He continues to pursue her. Like, after she goes home, to the point that there is a video that was circulating online early on in this case that shows David in Lake Elsinore. Lake Elsinore is a random place for David to be, unless he has some type of connection there, i.e. Celeste, right? So he's at Lake Elsinore, and it looks like he's in like a parking lot. You can see this black Tesla in the background while he's talking to these kids, middle schoolers. And they're saying in this deposit, or in this document here, they're saying that David went down to Lake Elsinore so that he could try to get Celeste a phone, get a phone to her. So he approached some kids that went to school with her, paid them $1,000, or a child $1,000. So he approached a child, paid them $1,000 to make sure that Celeste gets this phone so he can continue to have contact with her. Because when she got home, and when she went home, her parents took her phone from her, which would indicate that maybe her parents did not want her having contact with him. Or maybe, I take my daughter's phone all the time for random stuff. I'm like, you didn't do the dishes, I'm taking your phone, right? Like, so, they probably took her phone, like, you're not going to keep running away and this and that. And clearly, and this is speculatory, but like, clearly you having contact with him or whoever is not a good thing. So we're going to take your phone. So he went and purchased a phone for her, paid these kids, and she then had a phone to be able to contact him, which would appear that her parents didn't know about. Okay. Throughout 2024, she spent significant time with David. I'm talking weekends in the summer at the Hollywood Hills home that he was staying at, traveling with him to Vegas, traveling with him to performances. This here says that she went with him to London, and a lot of people online again are like, how was she able to get out of the country? This is a whole minor. So how was she able to just freely get out of the country? She had a passport, yes, but how did all this happen with no one saying anything? And again, when you look at pictures of Celeste, you know that this is a young girl. Like, this is not a woman. This looks like a child, okay? Not only that, David is from Texas. He's from the Houston area somewhere. I can't put my finger on exactly what area he's from. I can't remember right now. Maybe if drop it in the comments. But he's from Texas. Celeste went to Texas. She was around his mother, his family, whoever else is out there. She was around all those people. And again, none of these people were like, hey, so who is this young girl, not young lady, but young girl that you're toting around with you or whatnot. Nobody advised him that might have not been a good look, or I mean, I don't know. Nobody sounded the alarm for anything. It's just very concerning that a 13-year-old can walk around and be with a grown man and around all these grown people, and nobody is protecting her or advising her, you know, or anything like that. It's just really, really strange. So we'll move on to the actual text exchange, because I said that he gave her a phone so that they could have contact with each other. These texts contain references to sex, pregnancy, abortion, use of Plan B. And again, I want y'all to keep in mind when I'm reading this is a 13-year-old that we're talking about. Plan B emergency contraception, explicit photos of sexual activity, sexual relations, sexual acts, all of that. And so a highly inappropriate relationship they were having. And yes, it was sexual. In November of 2024, the victim, well, actually, David, I guess, broke up with Celeste, but however, they continue to have like a sexual relationship after that. They continue to talk. You know how like you break up with somebody, but then like y'all still like hang out here and there. Y'all kind of not sure what y'all want to do. I guess they were in that type of limbo. So April 23rd, 2025 was the date that Celeste passed away, and they're saying all cell activity stopped. Okay. So the night prior, on the 22nd of 2025, the two, David and Celeste, got into a really bad, lengthy argument via the phone or text message. And a lot of it had to do with, or based off of what they read, Celeste was jealous of the relationships that he was having with other girls. I have to say girls or women, whatever, other relationships he was having with people. And because she thought that she was, you know, his only, she thought they were going to be together. And she became extremely upset. And at this time, she started to threaten his career, at least in his eyes, and saying that she was probably going to try to expose him, you know, for what he was doing with her. And, you know, this could potentially destroy everything that he worked for in regard to his career. It could mess up his money and all that kind of stuff. So this is where in this document, they're showing where there's some type of motive there, right? So, again, he's, you know, emerging into a multi-million-dollar career. At this point, he's had collaborations and things with different celebrities. He's becoming a known name. He's touring. So he's on the up climb in his career. So something like this could wipe all that out. Okay. And so they're saying he was very aware of that. Okay. At 8:40 p.m. on April 23rd, after their argument on this text message, he sends for Celeste. At this point, Celeste is in Lake Elsinore. Again, out there with where she's from with her family. He sends a Uber out to Lake Elsinore. Again, that is really far. Okay. He sends an Uber out there, and that Uber brings her all the way into the Hollywood Hills where he is staying. That Uber arrives at 10:10 p.m. So before I get into the rest of this stuff, you know, drop some stuff in the comments what y'all think. But I think that as we get into reading this, it feels like something wasn't right with him. Like, it's like he is very sloppy with this, because this document creates a timeline of exactly what he did. And to me, it just seemed like he didn't even think it out enough. It almost feels like he wanted to get caught. It just doesn't make any sense. So let's go on. So at 10:10, she gets to the house via Uber. Now, Everybody knows when you sign up with Uber, you put a credit card, you put some type of bank card on there. When you take a Uber, there's a timestamp for when they pick you up, and there's a timestamp for when they drop you off. There's an address of where they picked you up at, and there's an address for where they dropped your ass off at, okay? So again, doesn't make any sense, because by 10:30, they're saying Celeste was already gone. She had already passed away by 10:30 p.m. So it basically, the minute she walked in that door, maybe they exchanged a couple words, but he was ready for her, and she was attacked basically the minute she walked in that door. So it says that she was stabbed multiple times. And he stood by and watched her bleed out. He did not at any point call 911. He didn't call the police. He didn't try to help her, nothing. And again, they're saying there's multiple stab wounds. Now, I was watching Nancy Grace, and she had a expert on there, and on the autopsy report, they show where these stab wounds are. And one of them was to her liver, right? And the expert was saying the liver is an area where, it's a fatal blow if that gets damaged. And not only that, this is not like a gunshot wound where somebody would just, it's quick and it's fast. Celeste died a very slow, excruciating death. It's very, very sad. He sat there and let that girl die like that. And he said this would have lasted a while, and she would have been in a lot of pain, and her abdomen would have filled up with blood, And so it's just kind of twisted how you could, basically pursue this child and then turn around and do something like this to her. It's just crazy to me. But yeah, he did not call 911. He didn't do any of that. That night, after all of that, he drove somewhere to Santa Barbara County, kind of like a isolated area, to dispose of evidence in some of her property. They find this out once again because David is driving this Tesla. And this Tesla, again, if you know anything about Tesla, there's cameras inside the Tesla. There's cameras outside the Tesla. It is basically a drivable computer that can be tracked any and everywhere for the most part. So again, not really thinking that through. I don't know. Maybe he panicked. Maybe he just wanted to, maybe he felt like people didn't care enough about her and they wouldn't be worried about her. But I just don't see how he could even think that, because the police came all the way out there to talk with him and tell them that she was a minor. So there were people looking for her. It just wasn't smart at all. Okay. So, again, he drives to San Marcos Pass Road, which is in Santa Barbara County, and it's off a service road 154. He returns home early the following morning on April 24th, and he proceeds to just go about his day. He does some radio interviews for the release of his album that week. And meanwhile, between the 23rd and the 24th, which I forgot to mention, he's texting Celeste as if she's still alive. He's texting and calling her, and some of the texts are saying, "Hey, where are you?" Matter of fact, right after he murdered her, he sent a text out saying to her, "Where are you?" So that looks like it creates a separation, like it wasn't him that did anything to her, because he was waiting on her to get to his house, right? So, but again, no, her phone was probably matched to a tower near his house, which would let them know that she was near him or with him at the time of her murder. So again, he didn't think any of that through. After April 26th, he never attempted to contact her again. All those phone calls ceased. Celeste never had any outbound calls or anything like that after April 23rd. Okay. And so that's why they're saying that is the date that she passed away, because at that point, things just went dark, silent. Okay. Now we're about to get into his Amazon purchases, because this is wild. Again, he didn't think none of this through. It absolutely makes no sense. So, on April 24th of 2025, he ordered a shovel from Home Depot, which he had delivered to his home via Postmates. On May 1st of 2025, he ordered from Amazon 2 chainsaws, again, to his home. On May 5th, from Amazon, which I didn't even think that you could get off of Amazon, he ordered these cadaver bags, these body bags, which Amazon might need to rethink what they sell on their side. I know they sell everything, but I don't know why somebody would need a body bag from Amazon. I feel like that should be a specialty store for a corner to go to and pick those items up, not on Amazon. But he was able to order body bags from Amazon, heavy duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable pool. We're going to get into this blue inflatable pool momentarily. He did all of this under a fake name. The fake name was Victoria Mendez. That's great, fine, and wonderful that you used a fake name. However, you had all this stuff delivered to your residence that ties to her murder. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay. On May 8th, he returned to the same area in Santa Barbara that I talked about earlier. He left his home at 11:30 p.m. He returned again to that same area on May 31st, 2025. And this is like an isolated area, again, off of a service road, 154. And in this area is where Celeste's identification was discovered in January of 2026. They don't say how it was discovered. I'm going to assume that the investigators went out there to the area. They did a search and they were able to find her stuff. It doesn't say on here that somebody, was walking and saw her identification. So I'm going to assume that this was the investigators that found this stuff. Okay. So July 7, 2025, he makes another Amazon order. And this time is for a burn cage. I don't know about y'all, but don't nobody need a burn cage in their house. For what? Okay, I wouldn't know what to use a burn cage for, but he had a burn cage. And I do remember the private investigator's name. His name was something Fisher. He spoke about when the landlords contacted him because they were renting this house out to David. Well, no, they were renting this house out to David's manager, so they were completely unaware that David even lived there. This house was supposed to be exclusively rented out to his management. But I'm sure that happens a lot where you manage a person and then, you have a property that they can stay in, a performer can stay in for a time. So they hired a private investigator because they wanted to know what went on in this house, and LAPD was not letting the landlords really know what was going on. So when he did an interview, Fisher did an interview with someone, and I do remember him speaking of items that were in that home that would definitely indicate that someone was trying to dispose of a body. I feel like I remember something about a burn cage, and I might be wrong if he was the one that said that, but I do remember that a burn cage was found in that home around the time that LAPD went out and searched the home. But I want to say it was still in the box, like it hadn't been opened or whatever. So, let's see. So we're on the burn cage. So now we're going to get into what happened that night that Celeste was murdered. So they're saying that he took extreme measures to destroy and discard her body. He placed her body into this, they're saying he placed her body into that blue inflatable pool, and the purpose of that was to prevent all the blood and stuff from going everywhere when he was dismembering her. So again, I was watching Nancy Grace maybe a couple of days ago, and Nancy Grace was kind of hung up on something that was in the autopsy report that talked about these blue like fibers or blue plastic fragments that were found embedded in her remains. And Nancy was like, what could that be? You know, what do you think that could be? Well, now we know what that is, because they were able to, the experts were able to make a physical fit match from the blue fragments that were found embedded in her remains. They were able to confirm that that came from a blue inflatable pool that was purchased by David in May of 2025. So again, he also amputated her left ring and pinky finger. And that was because Celeste had a tattoo of David's name on her ring finger. So they're thinking that he tried to create some type of, again, separation from her. Like, because obviously if she's found and she has this David tattoo on her finger, he's going to be the first one that they, you know, look for. But coincidentally, I remember early on, they never found the finger, but I believe it was her parents or friends or someone that had stated, and they had a picture, or Celeste had put a picture of her finger with his name on it. And also her family was aware that her boyfriend's name was David, right? So that was like a couple days after her body was found, that came out. So he then placed her head and her torso into the cadaver bag he purchased. He placed her limbs into a garbage bag, which he deposited into the front trunk, and laying the cadaver bag on top of that. Okay. They say that this is, and I'm gonna quote what they say. So it says, for several weeks or possibly months, defendant left the victim's body to decompose inside his Tesla. So again, they're kind of like, they don't know if she was in that Tesla the entire time after she passed, or she was put in that Tesla right before he went on this tour that he went on. They don't really know that part, I guess. At least according to this, it doesn't look like they really know. So in that, she's placed now in this Tesla. Now, David has extensive friends group. You can go online, you can see he had a lot of friends. He had a lot of industry friends and regular friends and whatnot, and associates and business partners and things like that. These people will come over to the house, and I'm guessing that they got some statements. LAPD has gotten some statements from people, and people are saying that they smelled something decaying in and around this house and vehicle. But David would just kind of act like, you know, he didn't know what it was, or, you know, whatever. So at this point, he leaves for his concert at the end of July, and he parks his Tesla on the street around the corner from his house. Again, according to this, there was already an odor coming from this car. He decides he's going on tour, so he's going to take the car and park it on a residential street where people are walking by. He's going to be gone for months on tour and not think that this car would get towed. If it got towed, not think that, oh, it's going to immediately be connected to him. It's just weird behavior. And no, nobody should be an expert in, you know, unaliving somebody and things like that, but none of this makes any sense. And I watched something yesterday, and although David is grown, he is a younger adult, which might lend to just some of the, you just wasn't thinking, you know, you shouldn't have done none of this at all in the first place, obviously, right? Like, this is horrific, absolutely terrible, but it just seemed like he just was really careless. And when you say that, and I'm saying that to say, because he pled not guilty to all charges. How do you plead not guilty to all charges knowing that you just left evidence and trails directly back to you left and right? And the only thing that I can think of that he might be banking on, possibly, because LA County has a history of tampering with evidence. I'ma just say it, okay? And I think because that is the only way that I think that this case that he could possibly get off, and it would be so unfortunate, is if someone mishandled some type of evidence somewhere, did not do their due diligence in these timelines somehow, and somebody else is potentially involved or helped him. That's where things can get a little shaky. And it's unfortunate because I really, cases like this is just, you want to see justice. You want to see, this is a child that this happened to, and you would hate for somebody to get off on a technicality, because for the life of me, I don't, either he's just batshit crazy or he's a narcissist, or arrogance or something is making him think that he can get away with this. But I don't know how he can have a lawyer that would advise him to plead not guilty to all charges. Y'all drop in the comments what y'all think. I can't figure it out. Those are just my theories on it. But yeah, this is pretty much everything for the case. Drop what you think in the comments. Are you following the case? If you would like me to do another video or continue to do these videos, please let me know. I do plan on doing more crime snacks. So yeah, I will talk with y'all next time. Thank you for tuning in for this episode of Crime Snacks, and see y'all later.